So here we go. Chapter 9. Okay, at the top, please. Chapter 9. Now, this is very important. If you want to try and push for higher grades on this, please listen to me very carefully. Okay, Dr. Lanion's narrative. Now, in this, we have a new narrator. Okay, a new narrator. Now, the previous 8 chapters, so chapters 1 to 8. What we call third person limited. Okay, so someone is looking above and they're telling us the story, but they don't know all of the facts. Okay, how is this one, chapter 9, we get a new narrator. Okay, this new narrator is a first person. Okay, who is our narrator? Dr. Lanyon. So when he writes, he has a different personality. So the style completely changes. Please remember, this is a letter. Okay? Now this chapter aligns with chapter 6. So often the things that he's talking about are taking place during chapter 6 of the main book. Okay? So please be aware, we can talk about different narrator. Right? It goes from third person limited, so that the writer that doesn't know what's going on, to first person. Okay? Now what that means is it becomes much more personal. Okay? It's from his perspective. On the 9th of January, now 4 days ago, I received by the evening delivery a registered envelope addressed in the hand of my colleague and old school companion, Henry Jekyll. Okay, right? So he says he's my colleague, so we work together, and my old school companion. So he gets a letter, a mysterious letter arrives from his friend Jekyll. I was a good deal surprised by this, for we were by no means in the habit of correspondence. So they don't write letters to each other. So he says, why has my friend written me a letter? It's a mystery. I had seen the man, dined with him, indeed, the night before. Okay? So I had seen him the night before. So it's very strange. Right? If I saw him the night before, why is he sending me a letter the next day? It doesn't make any sense. And I can imagine nothing in our intercourse that should justify formality of registration. So nothing happened that would mean he sent me a letter. The contents increased my wonder, for this is how the letter ran. So this is the letter, right? Who's writing the letter? Jekyll's. This is Jekyll's voice. Dear Lanyon, you are one of my oldest friends. I imagine Jekyll speaks like this. You're one of my oldest friends. And although we may have differed at times on scientific questions, I can't remember, at least on my side, any break in our affection. So it begins by saying, we're really good mates. Yeah? We fall out here and there, but we're really good mates. Now, if anyone began a letter to you that said, remember we're really good mates, what do you think they're going to be asking you for? A favour. Very nice, right? So this is what he wants. He wants a favour. So he's buttering, isn't he? He's buttering up, right? Oh, we're good friends. Sometimes we fight over science, but we've never, ever, ever had a big falling out. There's never had a break. There was never a day when, if you had said to me, Jekyll, my life, my honour, my reason depend on you, I would not have sacrificed my left hand to help you. See what he's doing? If you asked me for help, I'd be like, yeah. So when I ask you for help, I expect the same. Lanyon, my life, my honour, my reason are at your mercy. Desperation. If you fail me tonight, I am lost. Yes, of course I can. If you fail me tonight, I am lost. You might suppose after this preface that I'm going to ask you for something dishonourable to grant. Judge for yourself. I want you to postpone all other engagements for tonight. Okay, so that means to free up time. I, even if you were summoned to the bedside of an emperor, to take a cab, unless your carriage should be actually at the door, and with this letter in your hand for consultation, to drive straight to my house. Okay, this is what he wants them to do. So, cancel all your things. Get a cab. I mean, these days it's a horse-drawn carriage. Come to my house. Paul, my butler, has his orders. You will find him waiting your arrival with a locksmith. The door of my cabinet is then to be forced. Okay, so go to my house. We'll write this down. 1, go to my house. Okay. 2, break into his room. Okay. You are to go in alone. To open the glazed press, letter E, on the left hand, breaking the lock if it be shut, and to draw out, with all its contents as they stand, the 4th drawer from the top, or which is the same thing, the 3rd from the bottom. Notice how precise he is here, right? So break into my room and bring me a drawer, the things in a drawer, the 4th from the top, 3rd from the bottom. Doesn't want him to make a mistake. Okay, so bring me the drawer, contents. So go to my house, break into the room, and bring me what's in the drawer. In my extreme distress of wind, I have a morbid fear of misdirecting you. But even if I am in error, you may know the right drawer by the contents. Some powders, a vial, which is like a test tube, like a little what the hell's that, right? Like a little bottle. Oh, I'm just drawing a picture. Like a little bottle. There you go. I tried to draw a bottle, right? I should just write bottle, shouldn't I? You're smart people, you know what I mean by bottle, don't you? And a paper book. This drawer, I beg of you, to carry back with you to Cavendish Square exactly as it stands. Right? This is the favour he wants. Cancel all your plans. Go to my house, break into the room, get me that drawer, a book, some powders and a little bottle, and bring them back. This is the first part of that service. Now for the second. You should be back if you set out at once on receipt of this, long before midnight. But I will leave you that moment of margin, not only in the fear of one of those obstacles that can neither be prevented or nor foreseen, but because an hour when your servants, when your servants are in bed, is to be preferred for what I will then remain to do. At midnight then, now remember midnight is known as the witching hour, so it kind of has a classic kind of creepy vibe to it. So at midnight then, I have to ask you to be alone in your consulting room, or your doctor's room, to admit with your own hand into the house a man who will present himself in my name. So a man will turn up, he will use Jekyll's name, and to place in his hands the drawer that you have brought with him from the cabinet. So number 4 is to give contents to the man. Then you will have played your part and earned my gratitude completely. 5 minutes afterwards, if you insist upon an explanation, you will have understood that these arrangements are of capital importance. Capital means life and death. And that by neglect of one of them, fantastic as they must appear, you might have charged your conscience with my death, or the shipwreck of my reason. So, a bit intense, right? He gets a letter from his friend that says, do this for me, right? Go to my house, break into my room, get me the drawer, go home, give it to this man. Alone. No servants, at midnight. Confident as I am you will not trifle with this appeal, my heart sinks and my hand trembles at the bare thought of such a possibility. Think of me at this hour in a strange place, labouring under a blackness of distress. So this is why I like Jekyll, right? Because Jekyll is a writer. He likes to use metaphors, right? So rather than being like, I'm lost and sad, like Paul might say, he says things like, I am in a strange place, labouring under a blackness of distress, right? He's a bit eloquent. The good news for us is it makes it easy to write about because we can analyse it. Do you agree, Theo? Yes. Labouring under a blackness of distress that no fancy can exaggerate, and yet well aware that if you will but punctually serve me, my troubles will roll away like a story that is told. Serve me, my dear Lanyon, and save your friends. HJ, right? HJ, Henry Jekyll. P.S. P.S. I had already sealed this up when a fresh terror struck upon my soul. It is possible that the post office may fail me. What if the letter doesn't get delivered? And this letter not come into your hands until tomorrow morning? In that case, dear Lanyon, do my errand when it shall be most convenient for you in the course of the day, and once more expect my messenger at midnight. It may then already be too late, and if that night passes without event, you will know you have seen the last of Henry Jekyll. End of letter. So the letter says, you have to help me, I'm desperate. Okay, if for any reason you can't help me today, help me tomorrow, and if I don't turn up, know that I'm gone. Upon reading this letter, I made sure my colleague was insane. He's like, he's a mad man, right? Upon reading the letter, I made sure my colleague was insane. But till that was proved beyond the possibility of doubt, I felt bound to do as he requested, right? So again, we've got a little bit of sort of Victorian loyalty, right? My old friend said it, I will do it. The less I understood of this farrago, the less I was in a position to judge of its importance. And an appeal so worthy could not be set aside without a grave responsibility. I rose accordingly from the table, got into a hansom. Now this is a little cab. So if you think about a horse, there's a horse for you, right? Drawing one of these kind of cabs. So it looks a little bit like this. You know those ones? They only have one wheel. It's not a dog, call it. It's not a dog pulling it, it's a horse. That's a handsome cab. Rufus, I can see that you like that. Okay. And drove straight to Jekyll's house. Okay, so he gets straight in the cab and goes to Jekyll's house. The butler was waiting my arrival. He had received the safe post as mine a registered letter of instruction, and at once sent for a locksmith and a carpenter. The tradesmen came while we were yet speaking, and we moved in a body to old Dr. Denman's surgical theatre, from which, as you are doubtless aware, Jekyll's private cabinet is most conveniently entered. The door was very strong, the lock excellent. The carpenter avowed he would have great trouble and have to do much damage if force were to be used, and the locksmith was near despair. So it is well protected. Okay, the locksmith, somebody whose job is to pick locks, can't get in, and the carpenter says we're going to have to destroy the whole door. It's like a prison or like a safe, that room. Okay, he wants no one to get inside. But this last was a handy fellow, and after 2 hours' work, the door stood open. It took him 2 hours to pick the lock. Okay? 2 hours, Levi, to pick a lock. The press marked E was unlocked. I took out the drawer, had it filled up with straw, tied in a sheet, and returned with it to Cavendish Square. Here I proceeded to examine its contents. Right? Now this I enjoy. This is a bit like, you remember back in school where a teacher would be like, can you take this note down the corridor to the other teacher? Right? Who reads the note? Hands up. Who would read it? If I said to you, Marlo, take that over to Miss Lee, please. Right? Don't read it. As soon as you exit the door, reading that note, right? So he looks inside the drawer. Okay? He's not supposed to, but he does. Because, of course, he is curious. Yes. Sorry, say again. Mr. Russell never would have, no. I will not look in the drawer. The powders, no, this is the science bit, right? The powders were neatly enough made up, but were not with the nicety of the dispensing chemist. So it was plain they were, if I can stop doing whatever that is, just get rid of it please, it's really annoying me. Thank you. Right, so the powders are not professional, they were of Jekyll's private manufacture. What does that mean? Jekyll's private manufacture. He's made them himself, right? They are home-made, right? He's not got these from the chemist. He's cutting his own drugs, right? They're homemade. And when I opened one of the wrappers, I found what seemed to me a simple crystalline salt of a white colour. There's a white salt in there. The vial, with which I next turned my attention, might have been about half full of a blood red liquor, which was highly pungent, so it smells to the sense of smell and seemed to me to contain a phosphorus and some volatile ether. All the other ingredients I can make no guess. The book was an ordinary version book and contained little but a series of dates. Okay, the book. These covered a period of many years, and I observed that the entries ceased nearly a year ago and quite abruptly. Here and there a brief remark was appended to the date, usually no more than a single word, double, occurring perhaps 6 times in a total of several hundred entries, and once very early in the list and following by several marks of exclamation, total failure. All this, though, it whetted my curiosity. To whet is to sharpen. You whet, you sharpen, makes it more curious. Told me little of what was definite. Here was a phial of some tincture, a paper of some salt, and the record of a series of experiments that had led, like too many of Jekyll's investigations, to no end of practical usefulness. Okay, so the book is important, right? Because the book is of experiments. Okay, which makes more sense later, right? Double failure. It's all a mystery. How could the presence of these articles in my house affect the honour, the sanity, or the life of my flighty colleague? If his messenger could go to one place, why could he not go to another? And even granting some impediment, why was this gentleman to be received by me in secret? Notice this, please. Question, question, question. Yep. So there's a mystery here, right? He doesn't get it. Right? What's going on? The more I reflected, the more I grew convinced that I was dealing with a case of cerebral disease. What does that mean? Cerebral? Brain. So that he has got he's got a mental illness, right? That he's gone mad. He's like, none of it makes any sense. My friend must have a cerebral disease, a disease of the brain. And though I dismissed my servants to bed, I loaded an old revolver. He gets his gun out, right? Gets his gun. And that I might be found in case of self-defense. So he thinks it's going to get a bit spicy. Yeah? 12 o'clock had scarce run out over London, ere the knocker sounded very gently on the door. I went myself at the summons and found a small man crouching against the pillars of the portico. Who could it be? Who could it be? A small man. "Are you come from Dr. Jekyll?" I asked. He told me yes in a constrained gesture. So he doesn't say yes, he just goes like this. And when I had bidden him enter, he did not obey me without a searching backward glance into the darkness of the square. So when he walks in, he looks around, right? He looks around at the square because he's asking, has he been seen? Any guesses who this might be? Hyde. Why would Hyde be worried about being spotted? Very good, right? Because he's a murderer. He's on the run. Remember, this is chapter 6. He's on the run. Oops. There was a policeman not far off, advancing with his bull's eye open. A bull's eye is one of these little lanterns they used to have. It has like a light in it, like a candle, and a little thing, and it sort of shines the light out. So there's a policeman, that's actually quite good. There's a policeman walking around with, I ruined it. There's a policeman walking around with a lantern, right? And at the sight, I thought my visitor started and made greater haste. So he's scared of the police, okay? Because of course he's a wanted murderer, and the police are out for him. These peculiars struck me, I confess, disagreeably, and as I followed him to the bright light of the consulting room, I kept my hand ready on my weapon. Here at least I had a chance of clearly seeing him. I had never set eyes on him before, so much was certain. He was small, as I have said. I was struck besides with the shocking expression of his face, with his remarkable combination of great muscular activity and a great apparent debility of constitution. So he's strong, but he's also unstable. So he's a big guy, right? He's little, but he's kind of big, and he's a bit unstable. You're right about that, don't worry. It's only a book. It's only a book. Okay? So he's a big bloke, but he's also little, and he's weird. And last but not least, with the odd subjective disturbance caused by his neighbourhood. So he makes him feel weird, right? Ugh. This bore some resemblance to insipid rigour, and was accompanied by a marked sinking of the pulse. His heart beat slower. At the time, I set it down to some idiosyncratic personal distaste, and merely wondered at the acuteness of the symptoms. But I have since had reason to believe the cause to lie much deeper in the nature of man, and to turn on some nobler hinge of the principle of hatred. So there is something deeply wrong with this man. The person who had thus, from the first moment of his entrance, struck me in what I can only describe as a disgustful curiosity, was dressed in a fashion that would have made an ordinary person laughable. So the way he looks, the way he's dressed is funny. Dressed in a fashion that is laughable. His clothes, that is to say, although they were of a rich and sober fabric, were enormously too large for him in every measure. So his clothes are way too big. His trousers hanging on his legs and rolled up to keep them off the ground. The waist of his coat below his haunches, and the collar sprawling wide open upon his shoulders. Haunches is like your legs. So his coat drags along the floor. His trousers, he's had to literally roll them up. And his shirt is really big, right? All of his clothes are too big, ridiculously too big. Okay? Strange to relate, this ludicrous accoutrement, which is clothing, outfit, was far from moving me to laughter. So it wasn't making me laugh. Rather, as there was something abnormal and misbegotten in the very essence of the creature that now faced me. Right? Creature. Something seizing, surprising, and revolting. This fresh disparity seemed but to fit in with me and to reinforce it. So to my interest in the man's nature and character, there was added a curiosity as to his origin, his life, his fortune, his status in the world. So he's fascinated by this guy, right? Who is this guy? Who is this weird little man who's come to my door with massive clothes, his coat drags on the floor, he looks like a little tiny kid in adult's clothes. These observations, though they have gotten so great a space to be set down, were yet the work of a few seconds. My visitor was indeed on fire with sombre excitement. "Have you got it?" he cried. "Have you got it? Gimme!" Right? "Have you got it?" Excitement, right? Cried. And so lively was his impatience that he even laid his hand upon my arm. Ooh, you don't do that, do you? To shake me. "Have you got it? Have 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 you got it?" "Have you got it?" I put him back, conscious at his touch of a certain icy pang along my blood. So he touches him, he's like, "Ugh." "Come, sir," said I. "You forget you have not yet the pleasure of your acquaintance. Be seated, if you please." And I showed him an example, and sat down by myself, in my customary seat, with as fair an imitation of my ordinary manner as to a patient, as the lateness of the hour, the nature of my preoccupations, and the horror I had of my visitor would suffer me to muster. So he says, hold on. He says, hold on. Sit down. Do this properly, right? Who are you? Tell me what you want. I like this because he tries to be polite here, right? You're right. I beg your pardon, Dr. Lanyon. He replied, civilly enough. What you say is very well founded, and my impatience has shown its heel to my politeness. I come here at the instance of your colleague, Dr. Henry Jekyll, on a piece of business of some moment, and I understood...
Sorry for the interruption. I'm Joel Sharman. Please make his way to the left. That's Joel Sharman to the left.
He paused and put his hand to his throat. I could see, in spite of his collected manner, that he was wrestling against the approaches of hysteria. I understand a draw. So he's trying to control himself, right? So he comes in and he's like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And he's like, sit down. He's like, sorry, I was told to come here to get a draw. Here I took pick of my visitor's suspense, and some perhaps my own growing curiosity. There it is, sir, said I, pointing to the drawer, where it lay on the floor behind the table and still covered with the sheet. He sprang to it. Yeah! He sprang like a spring. He sprang to it and then paused. He laid his hand upon his heart. I could hear his teeth grate with the convulsive action of his jaws, and his face was so ghastly to see that I grew alarmed for his life and reason. Compose yourself, said I. Control yourself. He turned a dreadful smile to me. You'll like this bit. He turned a dreadful smile to me, as if with the decision of despair, plucked away the sheet. The sight of its contents, he uttered one loud sob of such immense relief that I sat petrified. The next moment, in a voice that was already fairly well under control, have you a graduated glass? He asked. I rose from my place with something of an effort and gave him what he asked. He thanked me with a nodding smile, measured out a few minims of the red tincture, and added one of the powders. So he mixes the vial and powders. The mixture, which was at first, this is good for science by the way, was at first of a reddish hue, began in proportion as the crystals melted to brighten in colour, to effervesce, which means to smoke. Audibly. Sorry. So he puts them together and it starts to bubble and smoke as the chemicals mix, to throw off some small fumes of vapour. Suddenly, at the same moment, the ebullition ceased, and the compound... Pace, please. Too late. We'll come back. Don't worry. It's just. All I said was that it starts to smoke and bubble. It changed to a dark purple. So it changes colour. So he mixes it together and it starts to bubble, starts to smoke, changes colour, which faded again more slowly to a watery green. So it goes red to purple to green. My visitor, who had watched these metamorphoses with a keen eye, smiled, set down the glass upon the table, and turned and looked upon me with an air of scrutiny. "And now," said he, "to settle what remains. Will you be wise? Will you be guided? Will you suffer me to take this glass in my hand and go forth from your house without further parley?" Parley means talk. "Or has the greed of curiosity," good quote here people, "the greed of curiosity too much command of you? Think before you answer, for it shall be done as you decide. As you decide, you shall be left as you were before, and neither richer or wiser, unless the sense of service rendered to a man in mortal distress may be counted as a kind of riches of the soul. Or, if you shall prefer to choose a new province of knowledge, and the new avenues of fame and power shall be laid open to you. Here in this room, upon this instant, you shall be blasted by a prodigy to stagger the unbelief of Satan." So shock the devil. So Mr. Hyde makes the mixture, right, just so you're clear on this, and he stands like this and he goes, "You have a choice. Option 1, I leave with this liquid and you never know anything more. Option 2, I show you what it does and it will change your life." Right? This is your matrix moment, right? The red pill or the blue pill. Do you want to know what's going on? Okay, look at this quote here. The greed of curiosity. So, this is your choice. Do you want to know the truth? And know the devil? Or do you want to not know the truth and continue your life as it is? Now remember, whatever he shows him kills him. He dies. Quick question for you. What would you do? Would you want to know? Or would you not want to know? Would you want to know the truth?
Does he know that if he finds out he dies? Obviously not.
What would you do, boys?
I'd say.
Here we go. "Sir," I said. "Sir, sir, sir," I said, affecting a coolness. That means that he's pretending. He's trying to be calm, right? He's like, this guy's just gone, "I'll show you the devil, if you want to see it." And he's like, "Sir, that was far from truly possessing. You speak enigmas. You speak enigmas, riddles, mysteries. And you will perhaps not wonder that I hear you with no very strong impression of belief. But I have gone too far in the way of the inexplicable services to pause before I see the end." So he says, "I've got to see the end. He wants to see it. Like Macbeth, right? I'm in blood waded too far to go back now. I have to know." "It is well," replied my visitor. "Lanyon, you remember your vows. What follows is under the seal of our profession." Okay, now this, he's talking about confidential. Okay, so when you go see the doctor, any doctor, and you tell him your problems, he can't go tell everybody. You have confidentiality. So he says, "I'm going to show you," but you can't tell anyone. Remember your vows, your oath. "And now, you, who have so long been bound to the most narrow and material views, you who have denied the virtue of transcendental medicine, you who have derided your superiors, behold." Okay, nice little bit of "yous" there, right? You. So he says, there's a bit of gloating here, right? It's like transcendental medicine means the ability to transcend the human form. So he says, "You who mocked me, who made fun of me, who said it couldn't be done, who derided me, behold," mocked. He put the glass to his lips and drank one gulp. A cry followed. He reeled, staggered, clutched at the table and held on, staring with injected eyes, grabbing the table. Gasping with an open mouth. And as I looked, there came, I thought, a change. He seemed to swell. His face became black, and the features seemed to melt and alter. The next moment, I sprung to my feet and leaped back against the wall. My arm raised to shield me from that prodigy, my mind submerged in terror. "Ah! Oh God!" I screamed, "Oh God!" again and again, for there before my eyes, pale and shaken, half fainting, and groping before him with his hands, like a man restored from death, there stood Henry Jekyll. "Oh God! Ah!" There stood Henry Jekyll. "Oh God!" What he told me in the next hour, I cannot bring my mind to set on paper. I saw what I saw. I heard what I heard. And my soul sickened at it. So he says it is too extreme, right? I will not say what he told me. But my soul sickened. And yet now, when that sight has faded from my eyes, I ask myself if I believe it. I cannot answer. My life is shaken to its roots. Sleep has left me. The deadliest terror sits by me at all hours of day and night. Okay, so he's deeply troubled by what has happened. I feel that my days are numbered and that I must die, and yet I shall die incredulous. Incredulous means not believing. As for the moral turpitude that man unveiled to me, even with tears of penitence, I cannot even in memory dwell on it without a start of terror. I will say but one thing, Utterson, and that, if you can bring your mind to credit it, will be more than enough. The creature who crept into my house that night was, on Jekyll's own confession, known by the name of Hyde. and hunted for in every corner of the land as the murderer of Carew. Hasty Lanyon.
When did he creep into his room?
No, it means the guy who comes round at midnight. So there you go. That's it. That is the big revelation. In case you missed it, Mr. Hyde and Dr. Jekyll are the same person.